Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Zilliqa podcast. Today, I have Ivan with me. Ivan is the co founder and CEO of Switcheo, and Switcheo is a DEX offering cross chain trading. And they are also the team behind Zilswap, which is the AMM DEX built on Zilliqa, which launched recently. So, today, we are going to talk to Ivan more about his journey to crypto and how he started Switcheo. So, Ivan, how are you doing? And thanks for accepting our invitation.
Hi everyone. It's so great to be here. Um, so we've been doing a lot of work with Zilliqa, like Anaf mentioned, and it's really great to be on this podcast today.
Cool, cool. So, can you start off by talking about how you got into crypto and eventually started with Switcheo?
Sure. So our journey, like I think most of you guys would have been, we actually started way back in 2017, 2016, and back then we were just toying with say Bitcoin, um, starting to invest in the Ethereum ICOs that was growing. I think Zilliqa was one of them that we actually invested in very early on. Um, but of course, back then, just like Zilliqa, there were a lot of other competing layer one blockchains, and so our interest was in one of the competing blockchains, right, Neo, and that's actually where we started the journey. We built the first DEX for them in a very similar way, like we just launched the first on-chain DEX for Zilliqa, and so our vision right now is really to have an ecosystem that is fully connected, meaning that uh, we want to connect not just we want to not just build on Zilliqa or say Ethereum individually. We believe in a ecosystem where tokens and assets can flow freely between the different layer one blockchains.
Okay, gotcha. So, can you give a brief about Switcheo? So that audience have more context.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so diving a little bit more into Switcheo, especially for those who are new to us. Um, right now, Switcheo's it's what we call a multi-chain DEX. So that means that we have individual smart contracts on various blockchains, and um, a lot of these contracts are atomic swap capable, meaning that we are able to um, trustlessly allow users to trade or basically flow assets from one blockchain to another. So if you go to Switcheo.exchange currently, that's what you're seeing. You'll see multiple blockchains like Ethereum and Neo, and there's certain special markets that allow you to move assets from one blockchain to another. So that's what we've been building since 2017, 2018. Um, right now we have a grander vision, so to speak. Recently, we have been looking into scaling and full cross-chain compatibility. So we've actually launched our own sort of blockchain for trading. It's called Switcheo Tradehub. We don't name it a very traditional blockchain name because the purpose of this blockchain is really just to scale trading and to scale asset transfers between the various blockchains. So so if you go to switcher.org now, that's like the next phase in our evolution. And where Zilliqa comes into all this is that Zilliqa will be one of the chains that we want to support in this really scalable what we can call it like a layer two solution. So at the end of the day, Zilswap is a layer one on-chain DEX. That's where the on-chain liquidity will come from, and that's why we built Zilswap. Later on, we'll actually connect, um, uh, we'll basically connect Zilliqa and Zilswap to this layer two system. And with that, you can actually have low latency on-chain trading. So right now, if you look at Zilswap, when you do a trade, you take like say 45 seconds maybe for a block to confirm. But when you actually trade on Switcho's layer 2 solution, all these can be instantly confirmed and then later settled on the Zilliqa layer 1 blockchain.
So, how is the architecture of Switcheo Layer 2 and what are the blockchains that you are supporting currently?
Right. So right now we are on uh, our initial chain, of course, which is new. For those of you who were in the space in 2018, I think you'll be familiar with that as well. And of course, Ethereum. So we are working quite closely with the Zilliqa team to actually to actually be able to have a bridge between Switcheo Tradehub and Zilliqa, and of course Zilliqa directly to Ethereum, etc. So this is something pretty exciting that we've been uh, um, communicating and working with Zilliqa on. How the architecture of the layer 2 actually works. I don't want to go too technical. I think it might be a bit too lengthy for this podcast. But how the layer 2 chain is actually built, it's using um, uh, this protocol called Tendermint, and it's BFT consensus sort of BFT algorithm that's similar, I think, to what Zilliqa uses and in some part of the consensus. And the only difference is, of course, that we don't shard or we don't group transactions into batches, and basically everything is done low latency and immediately committed to this layer 2 blockchains. So so the idea here is, of course, that because we don't use a VM and we are not generic, we only run a certain application path, and because of that, the operations basically can be very efficient. We don't have to like count gas because we know exactly how efficient each order placement is going to be. We know exactly how long each order match is going to take. So based on this, you can have a static cost for all these sort of transactions. So that's basically where the efficiency comes in, and that's how we get the low latency. From there, then it's just a matter of there's two ways to basically pack tokens to crossover. One's, of course, using a multi-sig sidechain sort of pack tokens, and the other is that you combine that with fraud proof. So it's a system very similar to optimistic rollup. Basically, every single transaction, we collate and we batch the transaction signatures and the transactions itself, and we just update the Merkle root of the entire state day after day. Whenever so in the normal case, that's all that happens. The layer 1 blockchain just gets the state updates, and only if, let's say, the layer 2 chain commits some sort of invalid state update, then basically watchers can send a fraud proof transaction, and then if the layer 2 chain does not counter this fraud proof in time, then the last good state is reverted, and then the layer 1 users can exit from there. Yeah, so that's the general overview of how this our solution works. Of course, there's a lot of other features and a lot of other things that we are working on. So, for example, derivative markets. We are working on what do we have? We have like some sort of different types of AMMs also on layer 2. So that's these AMMs basically support derivative markets. So yeah, there's actually a whole weave of things that we're working on, and we are and pretty excited for the future.
Okay, gotcha. So you mentioned that you can do a certain type of transactions, right? So maybe say if you want to have a bridge between say ERC20 and ZRC2 or a similar format in other blockchains. So what sort of transactions are you looking that are possible in the current model? And also there are a couple of projects, like I think ThorChain is one project that is doing something similar, right? So how do you differentiate from them?
So I guess for your first question, what kind of transactions can be made? It really depends on what our current modules support. Right now we are really focused on two things. One is derivative trading, and this is we model it very similarly after how a centralized exchange like FTX or Bybit will work. We with the whole liquidation engine, the whole ADL system, and that allows us to do very high leverage in a way that doesn't affect other lower leverage traders. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, of course, we want to be able to do layer one trades as well. So for example, for low cost blockchains like Zilliqa and Neo, we want to be able to do a atomic swap, or not atomic swap, but a atomic transaction that allows you to trade from Zilliqa to say, and then route through Switcheo Tradehub and then come out through Neo, for example. So that's the other thing we want to do. So that goes to the question, right, about ThorChain. So ThorChain is really focusing a lot on this sort of swap model and between chains. So they will basically connect a, say, layer one chain A to ThorChain, and then and another chain to ThorChain as well. And for them, I'm not fully clear on the cross-chain model, meaning how do they secure the assets and whether they actually do fraud proofs, etc. But at the end of the day, it's really just I feel more of a cross-chain AMM, whereas for us we're going a lot further. I feel in the sense that for our focus really isn't just on the spot market. We are looking at derivatives markets like futures, perpetuals, options, etc. And this is a lot more powerful than any other offering currently.
Okay, gotcha. So when you say derivatives market, what's the advantage for the user, say, of using Switcheo compared to FTX? Is it just it's non-custodial in your case? That's the main advantage.
All right. So I think privacy and the non-custodial nature is, of course, one of the main advantages and one of the selling points for DEX users. The low frictions, it's another major factor. This means that on FTX, you basically need to do a lot of KYC. You need to give away your identity, etc., which is something a lot of users are not comfortable with. Secondly, of course, the friction in terms of onboarding. When our derivative markets launch, basically, if you have a MetaMask wallet, you can really trade. I mean, as long as there's some Ether, of course. Yeah. So that's the second advantage. We'll be able to basically onboard users really quickly. And the last thing, of course, is it's a lot more tokenomics based. So first of all, we have we are taking the ideas that have came from DeFi over not just recently, but over the past 2 years. So for example, our derivative markets will be backed by AMMs, meaning that besides just professional market makers, there will be a very deep liquidity pool as people are incentivized to provide liquidity to the other books. So the way we do it, going back a bit more to the fundamentals, is that because we're not just a swap-based exchange, Switcheo Tradehub actually combines the liquidity from AMMs into the order books of the exchange, meaning that when you go to exchange, you actually look when you look at the exchange, it's actually an order book exchange, even though there's a liquidity pool. So basically, we simulate the available liquidity at each price based on the bonding curve of the liquidity pool, and users actually trade as if there is like a normal order book exchange. So that's the first thing. We envision that there will be deeper liquidity than a lot of other exchanges. And secondly, if users just want to provide liquidity and not take as much and not take so much market risk, basically they can very easily contribute to these DEX, whereas they can't actually do the same so easily for a centralized exchange. Yeah. So that's one of the USPs that we have. On top of that, for Switcheo Tradehub, because it's a decentralized exchange, users can actually basically take part in the protocol itself. through our own token, and by basically using the Switcheo token as a bootstrapping tool. Basically, we can do a lot of things that centralized exchanges don't do. For example, right, recently we just launched our governance protocol. Um, so you can basically change parameters such as the fees of the exchange, etc. And we kind of think that this will attract a different sort of a different group of users to take a look at the exchange. And if let's say you're a trader, you like the exchange, you can actually um, uh, buy basically the governance token of this exchange. And that's a pretty interesting concept that right now centralized exchanges don't have so much of.
Okay, gotcha. And I think does this enable, like, say, the one advantage of AMMs is that you get liquidity of tokens that are not maybe listed on centralized exchanges, right? So does this enable you people to do derivatives trading for new tokens or lesser like tokens that maybe derivatives normal centralized exchanges don't support?
Yeah, definitely. So for example, if the CTO protocol owners have enough basically confidence for a token and enough voting power to say that, hey, we should list this derivative market, then that's definitely a possibility. So our end goal is that for derivative DEX, um, we will be able to do physical settlement and cross asset margining, meaning that we don't even need a spot market to actually to do leverage trading. Yeah.
Interesting. Um, yeah, that's an interesting concept. I think I recommend the audience to look at Switch's website to find more details about this. Coming to your partnership with Zilliqa, let's talk about Zilswap. So, how did Zilswap actually come about? Can you share the background story of that?
Yeah, so for Zilswap, we've been wanting to integrate with Zilliqa for the longest time. And this is like way back maybe last year. And back then, we wanted to integrate Zilliqa with Switcheo in the same strategy without the whole layer 2, with the layer 1 smart contracts and atomic swaps and more. Um, but then as we progress and as Zilliqa progress, we realized that it makes more sense for us to first build a layer 1 liquidity pool on Zilliqa, so that tokens can have a base market, and then later on link it up with Switcheo. So initially we were thinking to do it in the same way as what we do now, where uh, remember I told you the idea about simulating liquidity. We actually already do that with Uniswap on our layer 1 exchange, and we're thinking of doing this. But going forward, I think we'll integrate Zilliqa directly with our layer 2 scaling solution, and users who want a faster experience can actually go to the layer 2 version and trade directly there for very for a lot faster confirmations, a lot lower latency.
Okay, gotcha. So Zilswap launched last week, or I think in the past few days. So how's the
Right.
community response been so far? And yeah, any exciting things that you've seen so far with Zilswap?
Yeah, it's been great so far. We've seen a lot of tokens being created very quickly after we launched Zilswap, and before that, there were a lot less tokens basically. And I've seen a lot of tokens being added onto Zilswap itself. I think we have a couple of thousand transactions already. Going forward, we have more plans for it. We want to uh, first of all, of course, build statistics. We want to grow the community around it, improve SDK and tooling around it, um, and this will give better sort of liquidity and also better pricing for the Zilswap markets, as um, people are more easily able to arbitrage on the on-chain DEX. So that's the first thing. Going forward, of course, we want to decentralize the exchange. We want to decentralize the control of the exchange. For example, in terms of setting fees, in terms of developing whitelists, developing future improvements to the protocol. So I think very shortly we are working with Zilliqa and Zilliqa Research and Zilliqa's Eco Fund to basically push out a governance token and governance um, basically structure for Zilswap. So we are pretty excited about that as well, and we hope the community will be supportive of this new launch. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I definitely am looking forward to that as well. Also, can you share about your experience building on Zilliqa so far in terms of learning Scilla, and then because I think you are quite technical as well, and you have you look at things in various other ecosystems. So yeah, how was the experience in terms of developer tooling, and comparing Scilla to Solidity and stuff?
So for Zilliqa, I think for a blockchain that launched like somewhat later than Ethereum, I think in terms of tooling, it was pretty strong. Um, and we've been discussing with the Zilliqa uh, the Zilliqa core team, and I think they are building a lot more tooling based on our feedback. So for example, they are doing the uh, what do they call it? The ganache for Zilliqa. I think something like the graph where you can query the blockchain is somewhat in the works, and I think going down the road, there's a lot more smart contract improvements that we'll see, um, and I think those will really bring Zilliqa to the next level. Um, so one of the things that I liked a lot about when developing on Zilliqa is of course that everything is typed, everything is um, a lot of issues can be found at compile time, and that's a lot less byte bit fiddling, which you do a lot in Ethereum, and that's pretty error prone. So when we build the Zilswap contract, we're pretty confident of its correctness, and we're pretty confident that it will work as expected, even before doing the first transaction on the UI. So that's a pretty nice development experience. Of course, Zilliqa also had the hindsight of building off a lot of things that Ethereum and other blockchains have done. So it was nice to have like the specs, the token specs that work pretty well. And I think going forward, hopefully Zilliqa can also adopt the latest standards that other blockchain communities have came out with. Because a lot of times the initial standards that these other blockchains came out with is not, it's um, has certain wants and certain deficits basically. Yeah.
Okay, so you mean like ERC standards, or yeah, what sort of
Yeah,
standards?
correct. So right now there's like ERC 20 and there's like 20 other different standards that build on top of ERC 20. And just actually to do a token transaction on ERC 20, you need to use a whole library to check for transfers and stuff like that, which is annoying as a Solidity developer because there's everyone doing their own things. And I think for Zilliqa, we are off to a good start. So when we developed this file, we made a few comments on the ZRC2 spec, and we changed that pretty early before people launch new tokens. So hopefully that this ZRC2 specification can will last, and it will be it will be it will promote cross compatibility across different smart contracts for a long time, rather than having basically many different specifications trying to work together.
Okay, gotcha. So can you talk about the ETH Zil bridge, or that some specifics about that as well? You mentioned about how Switcher works, but specifically for ETH Zil, what sort of plans do you have, and the what's the timeline and stuff that you're looking at?
Yeah. Um, as most of you probably know, Zilliqa isn't a fully Turing complete platform, and 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 um, yeah, and that refers to the smart contract portion, and the way we want to do the our bridge is to be able to verify certain sort of headers. So right now we're actually working with Zilliqa to ensure that all the operations that we want to do in that's required to basically process and parse headers of various blockchains to to we need to make sure that these operations exist and they work properly. And so I think that this bridge will come out in the next Zilliqa node or Zilliqa node software upgrade, which contains a few more um, of these operations. And and yeah, once that's out, we can start work on integrating Zilliqa to Switcheo Tradehub, and that's actually where we want to. That's actually how we want to do the F Zilliqa bridge. So we basically kill two birds with one stone. We are able to trade Zil's tokens on our layer 2 platform, and also at the same time we are able to do a swap between, say, Zilliqa and Ethereum tokens directly.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So initially, yeah, I think the plan is to have a BUSD, right? Like BUSD ETH to come to Zilliqa. Um, Also, can you talk about AMMs as you see right now? So there's like now Dodo that launched, right? And Bancor has their new V2. So people are using oracles to sort of prevent impermanent loss and have more better AMMs. So yeah, where do you see the AMM space heading, and any interesting things that you are adopting in Zilswap potentially?
Yeah, so I think I'm not so sure about using oracles for AMMs. I think for those we need a very low latency chain that might work for like Switcheo Tradehub, a layer 2 system. For layer 1 system, I'm not. It's I think it's a bit iffy. The whole point of the constant product model is that you have a certain guarantee that if the relative price move back to the same point, you don't actually you basically recoup your losses, and that's the most important. That's the fundamental principle behind this sort of bonding curve. Um, when you move these curves arbitrarily, it exposes the market makers to a lot of other risks. Um, and 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 usually when you put liquidity into a sort of bonding curve like that, that's you actually just want that exposure, meaning that you your your what your market direction is basically that your market outlook, sorry, is that you think that the direction of the market it's neutral, meaning that it's not going to move in either direction, and that's how this spawning curve works. Um, and if you actually want to do something else, then probably it's better to just change the bonding curve, and what could work is perhaps like multiple um, different curves that people can put into, kind of like how balancer will work. and then you combine all this into one single trading interface. I think that sort of model makes a bit more sense than a Oracle-based AMM. So Oracle-based AMMs, um, they also take away one fundamental aspect of of this sort of on-chain liquidity pools, is that they actually track us external market with the Oracle rather than being a price discovery mechanism themselves. And I think that's something that slightly inferior to the traditional AMM model. So I guess I guess my take on on-chain AMMs is that there's no real there's no such thing as a zero market risk market making, um, um, and AMMs are built that way because there's only a certain set of constraints that can be guaranteed on chain, and as a market maker, you need to understand what constraints those are, and what's the what's and whether it's compatible with your market outlook, basically. So yeah, for me, this sort of what they call impermanent loss is not really the main concern for market makers. What's the main concern is actually capital inefficiency, meaning that even if the market don't move and there's no impermanent loss at all, there's actually a lot of capital that's sort of wasted. And it's ironic because if the market acts in the way the market maker wants it to, then actually the market maker can use that capital more efficiently by basically placing orders closer to the spread, so that they can take larger orders and therefore higher trading commissions. And I think to be able to reduce this capital inefficiency, where basically a lot of capital is at the extreme ends of the bonding curve, that's a more interesting solution to solve for me.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I didn't think about it. I think also an issue with oracles is that, as you mentioned, with low latency blockchains, that people it takes time for the oracle transaction to get confirmed, right? So people can watch that, and bots can sort of front run that, right? Like mining bots.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, it's just not a very elegant solution. It's when it just opens up a very simple and elegant model to something that now has a lot of things to be taken care of. Yeah, and just from my engineering's perspective. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I think that sums up our conversation really well, and I think yeah, we definitely are looking forward to interesting changes coming to Zilswap, and for people who want to trade on Zilliqa, and also if you want to use XSTD, you can go to zilswap.io. And yeah, thanks Ivan for taking the time out today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.